Wisconsin Eyes and Wisconsin Dells at the Democratic Party State Convention. We have the pleasure of interviewing 4th District Congressman Gwen Moore. Gwen, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
And nice to talk to you again, Steve.
Your speech to the convention seemed to indicate it's a Democratic year. Do you feel that, ma'am?
I'm sorry, what was
your speech to the convention? Are Democrats playing a hot hand this election year?
Oh, I think so. I think at the top of our ticket, we have a fantastic woman, Mary Burke. It seems that she is neck and neck with Scott Walker, even as a basic unknown. And we heard various speakers really give us the reason why. There are many people who have been traditional Republicans who feel that the party no longer represents their values. They've been people who have been fiscally conservative, they have been socially conservative, but they feel that some of the ideological right wing thinking certainly does not fit in with what they thought the Republican Party represented.
You served in the legislature with Scott Walker, didn't you?
I did.
How has he changed? Have you seen a lot of movement on different issues to the right by the governor, Congresswoman?
As a matter of fact, I can tell you that one of the most egregious legislative initiatives that the governor is determined to get through, even beyond a federal court, disapproving the voter ID law. I recall his first election, he was the first author of a voter ID law.
Okay.
So I think he's been fairly consistent in regard to some of his very ultra conservative views. What I think has changed since he has been governor is his affection, I would say, for the oligarchy, and all of his initiatives seem to be aimed at providing tax benefits, revenue benefits to corporations and to the very wealthy at the expense of not just people in the unions, but women, K through 12 school-age children, those students who want to go to college or technical school, the seniors, the infirm, the extra burden that people, for example, on dialysis have to pay. $20 a month he's charging welfare recipients, denying people Medicaid at an expense to the state, really running the state into the ground to please the very wealthy. And that, I think, is because of his larger ambitions. It's not hard to see that connection.
Is the hardest thing, the toughest thing that he's done on your constituents in the 4th District, the failure to expand MA? Because you alluded to that in your speech.
This has really been hard, and you know, he would argue, well, they can just go to Obamacare, which he doesn't support. They can just go to the exchange. But had he accepted the Medicaid benefits, people would have been eligible for Medicaid for up to 133% of poverty, which is still very poor. And now people who are at 100% of the poverty level, which is regarded as really poor, those people find themselves on the exchange. And those people who have parents, and have children, find that perhaps the children are eligible and they're not. So I'm really concerned about those children and whether or not there will be a lot of confusion and whether those kids will actually receive the benefits that they'll receive. Now, he'll argue, well, we just swapped out a different population of adults. But when you look at it, we have netted the greatest loss of beneficiaries under Medicaid in the country.
Talking about children, that especially tragic incident, the 10-year-old shooting she was playing on outside the Clark Street Elementary. Is there any federal, state, county, or city policies or unit of government that bears any blame for that, Congresswoman?
Well, I can tell you that I think interpretations of the Second Amendment have really, and the money, quite frankly, that the industry garners from gun sales has prevailed over any sort of reasoning and rational thinking. NRA members want legitimate control over who can possess a firearm. Because one of the things that we've noticed is that people can't even shoot. You know, you're out bang, bang, banging, and you know, you would think people would stop shooting when they see when they're on the playground and they see the 10-year-old there. Certainly, the 10-year-old is not the target, and people are settling their differences. They are responding to the fact that they are living at just bare subsistence level. Their tempers are short, and everybody shouldn't have a gun. They should not be as available to everyone. It is a right that I think we have, you know, it'll be proved someday that constitutionally the state has a compelling interest, and the country has a compelling interest to limit access of firearms to certain people.
Is there any hope that some of those changes are either going to pass in Washington or Madison?
Well, it will not be for the lack of trying. I mean, the president has, and on a bipartisan basis, I think that the National Rifle Association is a very strong lobby. They're very intolerant of any deviation from their absolute reign and rule. I certainly believe in people's Second Amendment rights. I voted for that in the state legislature, a constitutional amendment. Mm-hmm. But, you know, if you say, well, yeah, but maybe we should have trigger locks. And the technology exists to do more than we're doing, and the lobby kills all those initiatives. And so I think that it's going to take really a bottom-up, very populist movement to have the Second Amendment put in its right perspective.
One of the issues that has arisen since the last time we had a chance to talk is the Edward Snowden leaks and the activities of the NSA. Do you feel that your constituents' privacy have been invaded by some of these practices?
I don't know that my constituents' privacy has been invaded. I'm certainly I'm very, very concerned about how technology has certainly outpaced our putting in place the right kinds of rules of the road. And I have voted against a lot of the authorities and powers that have been under the FISA court. Certainly, I want to make sure that there is someone from the public domain that can be behind that veil of secrecy for FISA authority. And I certainly think that we have got to balance any sort of security issues that we have with people's rights. So I am concerned about Big Brother, as it were.
You think NSA has been a rogue agency that has broken the law?
I don't know if they've been a rogue agency, because we have given them a great deal of power to do things that have been secretive. I think, you know, my recollection was when Senator Feingold was elected, that this was something that he was very, very concerned about. With the, the Patriot Act and all of its implications, right. And really warned us that while it sounded like the right policy at the time, that we would find ourselves trying to peel it back. And I don't know that we have gotten there yet.
Well, we're at the Democratic State Convention, so let's talk politics. I was surprised at former Senator Gary George's filing papers to challenge you. Were you surprised?
I was very surprised.
For years, you two championed the causes of the city of Milwaukee in the state Senate. Now he's in a primary. I'm sorry. Your reaction?
Well, yes, that's true. I mean, I think there have been 6 African American state senators, and Gary and I were the only ones who served together. So I feel that I know Senator George very well, and Of course, Senator George is very, very intelligent. He's very well educated, and certainly provided a great deal of leadership in the state Senate. But the reality is that because of his legal record, he cannot run for a state office again, and I suppose he still has an appetite to be elected.
Well, what do you see as the issues between you and Senator George? Because when he announced, he said that Milwaukee needed more vigorous representation. But I know you, having covered you in the Capitol and a few conventions, you've been out as a tireless champion of Milwaukee.
What do people say when they're running against you? We need new leadership. We need more vigorous leadership. I think I heard him say we need more bold leadership. That's what people say when they're campaigning. They have to say something in order to convince people that they should. I also heard him say that no one should be in office longer than 10 years. Well, Senator George knows that the way you acquire power, certainly in Congress, is by seniority, and that the district doesn't benefit from having a new person come in. But, so he chose a number. No one should be there longer than 10 years. Guess what? I've been there 10 years. We need more bold leadership. Well, he's very bold, probably as compared to me. I would say he's very bold. I mean, even to have filed against me is a pretty bold move.
What are you proudest of in your 10 years? If he says we need more bold leadership, your answer is, my record includes, what are you proudest of?
When we had earmarks, for example, I brought $127 million right into my district, for sewerage projects. I'm so proud of representing Lake Michigan, redevelopment of Menominee Valley, and I've worked very, very hard on all kind of issues ranging from financial services to business development. I am sick that we didn't get that $800 million in train money, because this is something that I had a direct involvement in.
Mm-hmm. Those trains were assembled in your district, correct?
And the trains that were going to be developed, worked with, helping with that application with the Talgo company. We've got right in the heart of the central city, the old A.O. Smith factory grounds, where we had 10,000 workers there at one time, the abandoned, shuttered factory. We could have had train sets, and it's hard to believe that we wouldn't have eventually had local commuter trains there. And the $810 million project would have run through Illinois, Wisconsin, and ultimately Minnesota. And 1/3 of the population of each of those states were in the path of that train. There would have been all kind of economic development, housing development, Gwen's flower shop at the Kiss and Ride that could have developed. And we will never recover, ever, from missing that transportation money, and I was very involved with that. I'm very, very proud of having been able to work on a bipartisan basis, even to get some things done. Passage of the Violence Against Women Act, and maybe that's a woman type thing, but I think it benefits our whole community when we protect folks against violence. I've been very active on the Financial Services Committee. When we had the financial meltdown, I was on the Financial Services Committee. Very, very proud to have been an author of Dodd-Frank. I was one of the so-called Titanium 10 that the Urban League talked about in terms of getting all of the departments under the Treasury responsible for minority and women inclusion in financial services. Very, very proud that since we've passed Dodd-Frank, I have been able to usher in some small changes that really provide a support to the many manufacturing businesses that we have in our community to make sure that they are able to use financial products appropriately. It's been like getting a free MBA by working on the Financial Services Committee, and so I've been very active on the committee.
Is Gary George's felony conviction a issue?
For the voters?
For you? Will you bring it up as a campaign issue?
I think Gary knows that I don't necessarily have the appetite for a negative campaign. He can come forward with his campaign and explain to people why he thinks that he should replace me. But when I think of him, and not only him, but the other candidates that are on the ballot, I'm not silly enough to believe that I'm the only person that could represent the 4th Congressional District. I've had predecessors, I will have successors, but I think I'm going to try to convince people that at this particular time, given the field, that I am the best, I would be the best steward of this seat at this time.
Does he live in the 4th District, Congresswoman?
No, he doesn't live in the 4th District, and I don't believe that legally he has to live in the 4th District. He lives in what is currently Representative Petrie's district, which, by the way, is an open seat.
Yes.
Upon the retirement of Mr. Petrie.
Could he be seated if he were elected?
I don't know. That would be the prerogative of the House of Representatives to seat him,
okay,
or not.
Okay. Well, let's end on a positive note. Your top goal, if you're reelected in the next 2 years, would be what, ma'am?
Well, I can tell you, I've been working very, very feverishly to try to win back the majority in the House. Now, people chuckle when they say that because, I would suppose that Senator George supposes that he'd be able to magically do something better than I would be able to do. I've worked hard on jobs and getting the jobs bills passed, and I was very proud to be able to vote for the Affordable Care Act. But the fact is, you can't do it by yourself. You need to be part of a majority. So I've worked very, very hard, traveled, done a lot to try to help other of my colleagues get elected. And people say, well, that's ridiculous, Gwen. The gerrymander prevents the Democrats from winning. But I am starting to feel like people are getting tired. And like Fannie Lou Hamer might say, they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that while we may not be able to win, they can lose. Data were conclusive that had we had the election the day after that government shut down, we would have won hands down. But I mean, Republicans are standing in the way of all kinds of common sense things that I support. I'm on the Financial Services Committee. I've been one of the chief proponents of reauthorizing the Export-Import Bank, which Wisconsin depends on the Export-Import Bank for its economy. It creates literally hundreds of thousands of jobs in Wisconsin and millions of dollars in revenue. They didn't want to do that. I got a piece in the flood insurance program. A study on community rating to make insurance cheaper in that flood insurance bill. We dragged Republicans kicking and screaming to do that, much to the chagrin of the chambers of commerce. We're trying now to get them, and I was the lead until the Boston bombing on the Democratic side for the terrorism risk insurance program. Republicans are convinced that the private sector can insure another 9/11, and on and on and on. And so I've been working very hard to try to get some of my other colleagues elected. I certainly think this election cycle, my goal, other than getting myself reelected, is to change leadership at the top here in this state. I would love to help Mary Burke get over that finish line. And so those are my immediate goals. And my goals for being reelected is to keep on working very, very hard. We desperately need jobs in this community. And I'm working in a background where we have a solid group of Republicans that are anti-government. They don't want government to do anything. Mm-hmm. And so I still have the fire in my belly, Steve. And as long as I have that, I find myself being able to get into those cracks and to make stuff happen.
Well, 4th District Congresswoman Gwen Moore, thanks very much for talking to Wisconsin.
Thanks, Steve.
Always a pleasure. Have a good convention.
You too.
Thank you.